Happy Wednesday night! Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you, as always, for being with us. We appreciate you. And happy International Women's Day. It's a big day tonight because we are going to be talking about Treasure Planet. But we also brought back a fan favorite. It's Katie. How are you, Katie? Whoop, whoop! It's Katie! Are you muted? Tell me you're not muted. Tell me you didn't come out of the gate muted.
No, and I'm muted, but
Woo!
yay!
Woo!
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie, thank you so much for coming back. You and I have done a lot of review stuff. Usually I let you pick. You picked Roger Rabbit, Rocketeer, all kinds of things. I was like, man, you are too young to be doing these reviews, and you know your stuff when it comes to some of this old stuff. But I called you up on this one and said, hey, would you review Treasure Planet with me? And you're like, yeah, I'll do that. It's fine. And I think that now we're going to have very different opinions about this movie based on some of the stuff we talked about pre-show here. But Treasure Planet is one of the Disney full-length animated features. It's one of those that came out. It came out in 2002, and it's one of those that I feel like doesn't really get a lot of love. And part of it, that was a weird time, like Treasure Planet, Atlantis, those kind of things. And I have a theory, and I'm gonna throw it at you. My theory is that I feel like, and I think I may have talked about this on another show, is that when a movie doesn't have those musical moments in it, and there is music, and we'll talk about that, but when it doesn't have those musical moments, like Encanto, I feel like it doesn't stick with people and resonate with them, and they don't carry it with them. They were like, oh yeah, I saw Treasure Planet, it was fine, but they don't rewatch and go back to it, and we don't see attractions of it and all that kind of stuff. That's my theory, is it's about when Disney movies have music. Thoughts?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think music is a big reason people rewatch films. Especially, I had not probably seen this since I was like 5 or 6. So rewatching this, I was expecting there to be more music. So the lack of music, I think there is something to say about maybe not this being as popular. So I think you're on spot with that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for entertaining that with me. I appreciate it. And it was just something like when I was watching Strange World, because this one has a lot of connections, sort of, with Strange World, the one that just dropped on Disneyplus recently, and the idea of something fantastical like Strange World, Atlantis, Treasure Planet. These seem to be the ones that don't connect, whereas movies like Encanto or The Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin, some of those that have that music that we go back to, that we listen to later on, that we enjoy hearing on the music loops in the parks and in attractions and things like that, really mean a lot. So I think that at its heart, that may be part of the problem, but we'll delve a little bit deeper into that in a minute. So obviously, this is based on Treasure Island. And one of the things that you and I talked about too was you're a huge Muppet fan, but you're not a
Yes.
huge Muppet Treasure Island fan. You have problems with that one.
Oh my gosh, I do. And I was like getting flashbacks to Muppet Treasure Island watching this movie. I was like, I just do not like these boat settings. Like half the movie takes place on the boat, which is the same with Muppet Treasure Island. So maybe I just don't like the OG Treasure Island story. Maybe I should go back and visit that. But
Yeah, figure out what your problem is there.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what your problem is either, Katie. I really don't. But I would say that it is something that they've gone back to the well on time and time again. The whole Treasure Island thing. There is a Disney Treasure Island. I think that when we were talking to some of the fans of the show and saying to them right after our 150th review, like, what would you like to see? I think a lot of people said Treasure Island, like the original one. I would like to kind of go back to the Muppets one and kind of talk about that one at some point. So I think we're going to have to space it out from this one, no pun intended about space, and really figure out, like, some distance between this one and doing Treasure Island or Muppets Treasure Island. But I do. Let's talk about that though. I don't. There are some things in here that they make connections with because of it being like Treasure Island that I think are just kind of dumb. The fact that in whatever this space world is, that the ships would still look like boats and be open at the top and have this, like,
yeah.
I mean, they kind of explained the artificial gravity thing, but did you go,
Well, it's like that professor, whatever's in this huge spacesuit, and he gets on a boat. It's like what? Like, there's definitely
are you talking about
a
Dr.
lot
Doppler? Oh, don't downplay Dr. Doppler.
I listen, I liked him. He was one of the few characters that I probably felt something towards at the end of the film, but still, like, I don't understand this whole like boat, no gravity for sure. Like, you have to have a little bit of whimsy when watching this.
Yeah, it is. It is fantastical. I mean, it is an animated movie, but that and there's a lot of little things that they incorporate into it because it was 2002. It's like, snowboarding. Let's do this like, he's a snowboard kind of guy and he's like, and there's this one point where Jim is actually like he's using the solar boards and going through what looks like Beggar's Canyon and it felt like pod racing like I could hear like oh pod racing. It felt like it right because it and even the angles of the computer generated backgrounds. No, you weren't feeling that.
Yeah, no, totally. With the setting too, it felt just very dismal and like the one thing exciting going on where in that scene in Star Wars, I feel like everything's dead except pod racing as it's like as it feels watching that. So got those vibes. Definitely early 2000s, same era kind of vibe.
Yeah. Dawn was saying they probably want this to look like the original, and also because pirates. So yeah, pirates, I get it. But I feel like they could have enclosed the ship. I don't know. That's just one of those things where I'm like,
Yeah.
But again, it was a neat little. I mean, it's a vibe. It's pirates and boats in space. And they do try to, and it's not Treasure Island, it's Treasure Planet, and they do kind of talk a little bit about, things that make sense, like, the artificial gravity being on so that everybody's down, and then they all have their lifelines, and it's a thing. One of the other things is this movie came out very close to the same time as Lilo and Stitch.
The literally the entire time I was watching this film, I was like, "Oh, it's Lilo." Like the animation is Lilo and Stitch. The weird alien creatures is reminiscent of Lilo and Stitch, except I care about the characters in Lilo and Stitch.
Well, and back to my music point, Lilo and Stitch has the Hawaiian
Elvis.
yeah, but it has the Elvis song in it, but the roller coaster ride song is in there. So there's even some originals in there. But yeah, the Elvis music all the way through. So again, music kind of drives that, and you wanted to get that soundtrack and remember that movie and bring it back. I don't think that's the only thing that's different. Obviously, Stitch is adorable. We have Morph in this one, so we can talk about Morph in a minute. But one thing I wanted to point out was in this one, there's like a little Easter egg, and I don't know if you saw this, that on the shelf, on the left-hand side on that shelf is Stitch as 626. I don't know if you can
That is,
see that or not.
yes.
So, and then the other thing is because this, the same directors as Aladdin, you can see the carpet, and then it's kind of a controversy of is that carpet from Aladdin? Because Aladdin would have been much before this. So, uh,
What?
yeah,
I didn't even notice.
okay.
I do love the
Well,
bedroom though. Full
your
bedroom.
bedroom looks just like this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Shirt hanging from the ceiling, all that.
sure. Why not? Let's. I guess let's go ahead and talk about the music. The score is from James Newton Howard. But there are two songs from John Resnick in this one. Do you know who that is?
No,
Okay,
I
so there was
don't.
a band called the Goo Goo Dolls. They had a song called Broadway Slide. Any of these ring true to you? I know you were like one when they came out, probably, but
I know Goo Goo Dolls. I don't know
okay, Goo Goo
individual
Dolls.
bands.
All right, so Johnny Resnick, and he's credited here as John Resnick, by the way, just throwing that out there. Johnny Resnick did two songs in this one, and it's not the Goo Goo Dolls, but it's like because I saw Dawn was talking about the Goo Goo Dolls. It's not the Goo Goo Dolls, and it's John Resnick, and it because he's the lead singer of the band. It does sound like that they are Goo Goo Dolls songs, but they're John Resnick. So the story that I have to go along with this is because I work in radio. The Goo Goo Dolls were coming to town around the same time this movie had come out, and I had a flat. It was like looks like an album cover of Treasure Planet, and I went to the program director. He was going to meet up with the Goo Goo Dolls, and I was like, "Will you get this? Will you get Johnny Resnick to sign this for me?" That would have been the best thing is to have Johnny Resnick sign this for me. He came back with a different flat of the Goo Goo Dolls album signed by the entire band. And he said that they couldn't have Johnny sign something that wasn't Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh, wow, that's a bummer.
It was. It was a bummer.
That-
I was like, "Oh, this is so cool. This movie had just come out, and I was a big fan. And I was like, this is gonna happen." No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the Goo Goo Dolls, and I like the fact that I have all three of them had signed this thing. But it would have been better if I had had him, and especially if he was just for some random reason going by John Resnick at the time. Huey Lewis did the same thing. Huey Lewis, not the signature part, but Huey Lewis did Once Upon a Time in New York City that opens up Oliver and Company, but it's just Huey Lewis. It's not Huey Lewis and the News.
yeah, that soundtrack, Billy Joel and Huey Lewis, it's crazy. Get into it another day, but
I did get we should we absolutely should. I would love to do that one. When with Huey Lewis, I did meet Huey Lewis, and I said to him, "Are you going to do Once Upon a Time in New York City?" He said, "I don't think we're doing that one tonight." And that was it. And I was like, I just needed to mention to him, like, to bring that up at some point, that was a thing that he did, and I love that one. So anyway, both those songs, and Dawn, it was in chat and said it was a banger. I agree. Like those songs, like that song. That they play with that montage as, like, Jim Hawkins is kind of like, kind of trying to get acclimated, as and John Silver is doing his thing, and so there's a montage with that, and then it's like him flashing back to being a kid and his dad walking, like there's a lot that's rolled up into that one moment, but it doesn't feel like it's a song. I don't know, it feels like when you throw an 80s song in to do a montage, it didn't seem like it fit the same way that, say, like Be Our Guest or something would. Thoughts?
even I think Disney does such a great job with these montages, especially in these movies in the early 2000s. I mean, think of Toy Story 2, like the scene with Jesse. Like that is an emotional montage. And I think they were really reaching. His father leaving, obviously, and it's like he's building this relationship with the cook, and it's emotional. I just don't think it resonated.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I can go along with that. But it is, I mean, I do love that song. That's the weird part is, and maybe again because I was a Goo Goo Dolls fan, I do love that sound that he has. Um, So anyway, I know we've skipped over a bunch. I mean, when the movie opens up, it opens up with a narrator. The narrator's talking about this story of this the pirate Flint and how he would appear. And when you go back and rewatch this, you're like, oh, I get it now. They talk about how this pirate was the greatest pirate in space, and he would appear out of nowhere. He would take all the gold and then disappear just as quickly. And then when you get to the end, you find out like how he was doing that. But when they tell it as the narrator talking about it, all of a sudden little Jim's head pops up, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then you realize it's some kind of a hollow book.
Yeah. I what I will say the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie is probably my favorite. I think the animation is gorgeous. I love the setting of their home. I love the setting of the scientist's home. I love just the animate. Like I thought that book was very magical. I like that there's a sense of like futurism in like advanced technology almost, but still being like childish. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. And honestly, it's they they tell the story, and he's on this planet, and his mom is running this inn, and you find out that the dad had left. And I think in the story, in the book Treasure Island, I think the dad dies. In this one, they make it such a big thing that his dad has abandoned them.
yeah.
So do you think he's coming back in the sequel? I'm just
No,
kidding. There won't. There's
no.
not. Yeah, yeah, no. But they make a big deal about the dad has abandoned them and left them, and so she is, trying to keep this inn afloat, and keep the money going. But Jim, he just can't fight those instincts, kind of very much like Luke Skywalker. Like, I want to get off this planet. I want to go on an adventure. I'm always getting into trouble, kind of a thing. And here now we've got she's trying he gets brought back by the police, and they're having this moment, and then we've got Dr. Doppler, who is apparently a very good friend, and he's trying to help them out. And then as Jim is sulking on the roof, this ship crashes. He goes to the ship, helps the guy in, that's Billy Bones, and he's got a treasure chest, and he's talking just very mysteriously about some cyborg, and beware the cyborg, and he dies and hands this package to Jim. They run out. as the pirates now come and descend upon the place and burn it to the ground and take refuge in Dr. Doppler's house, where they realize this is actually a map that they've found to get to Treasure Planet. One of the memories that I have of this movie is there's a part where they're reading the book, and the mom's reading the book about the story of Treasure Planet, and she and Jim go, Treasure Planet, and like every time I hear the title of this, that's how I hear it, and I think
That
that may
song.
have even been in, yeah, no.
No, I love that.
And then he says it one more time when he sees it pop up in the map, and then now Dr. Doppler he's like, hey, this could be a big deal for me. Let me go get in on this. I'll take Jim. It'll be good for him. He tries to convince the mom, and then they go commission a ship and take off. And obviously they've made a huge mistake in the ship crew that they've hired, and things go awry from there. But it is the whole journey to that point is what you like. Everything that's where they're still on the planet,
Yeah.
and then once
Honestly,
they get
yeah.
on the ship, they we lose you.
Until they get on that dang ship, because I even loved the part when they're at the docking station. I was like, this is so cool, like the multi-dimensional city. It was like almost like rewarding thinking of Coco, because I was like, wow, this like what a difference seeing like these sculptures and like designed elemented cities from this to Coco. Like, wow, how the times have changed, but it's still like I think it still stands strong. And then the second they get on that boat and I see all the rest of the cast, I'm like, oh, but we can keep talking.
Well, and visually, let's talk about this visually, because this is a hand drawn movie, and the animation, as you said, is very similar to, say, a Lilo and Stitch. They're kind of a little bit larger, like their legs are larger. They're a little bit, the designs are a little chunkier than, say, like Little Mermaid. The lines are very thin in that one. This one's more of like what you see in Atlantis and movies like that. But this one relies heavily on the computer animation, especially when they do things like this with the map, where you can see the hand-drawn characters, but like the shadow and the map is all done with CGI, so that they can really get that sort of futuristic feel for it. And I think this is kind of around the time where we were turning that corner, where we were incorporating much more CGI into it. The ship, definitely the sails on the ship, those solar sails, all of those things. Does that take you somewhere else? Are you entranced by that, or does it take you out of it to see that kind of like this early mix of CGI and hand drawn? You see what I'm saying?
I liked it. I thought it was really cool seeing the hand-drawn elements interact with the CGI. Like Jim's like there's a scene where they're on the boat, like the side boat that comes out of the big boat, and he like pushes down on the throttle and the throttle CGI. And it was like, okay, that's cool, but I think it's dated now, like where we've come in animation. I do think it's different to watch than what's being released now. So that's definitely something is like a viewer discretion. This has been a little dated, but I don't think it transports me anywhere. Not this film.
Uh, so this thing, as they look out the window and they see the crescent moon, but it's really like this little city space station. We were just talking a little bit about the fact that Mandalorian season 3 is up. I assume you watch Book of Boba Fett, and this reminds me of the world where Mando goes to find his people, right? I mean, it's that same. It's like this weird sliver.
I
That's the
like
first thing I
that.
thought of.
It's like
Yeah.
a shadowed part of a moon or something. I do like that concept.
Yeah, it seems very, and again, very much like the boats, it seems very just unnecessary. I mean,
Yeah.
so it feels so unnecessary that they would they would do it that way. But yeah, very cool. And again, this is where the CGI really shines. I mean, you've got the ships and the city and all of this stuff that the details and intricacies, especially as you zoom in, would never have been that precise if we were doing this as hand drawn. And again, it kind of zooms in the whole thing, so it leaves that room that they're in and goes out, and and we get here, and then now they're here getting their ship, and he's wearing the funky outfit like you were talking about, like the deep sea diver outfit for some unknown reason.
Yeah. I like that character though. I won't I won't lie. I thought he was funny.
You like Dr. Doppler?
Yeah, I would say the comic relief is the best part of the film. This and then the Ben, the robot.
So yeah, the and let's talk about the cast for a second because I feel like Joseph Gordon-Levitt at this point was not as well known, and he was I think he was still Tommy on Third Rock from the Sun when this happened. He was not as well known. He was perfect for Jim Hawkins, I feel like, um, and not over the top. You look like you want to say something about that.
I didn't even realize it was him till today. I'm like
Really?
doing all, well, because I heard near the end of the movie the robot, and I was like, oh, I'm a Martin Short lover. That's my boy Martin Short. I just know it. And then I looked up the rest of them, and I was like, Dorson, or what is this, Gordon Levitt, or whatever. I was like, what?
Joseph
But
Gordon-Levitt, yeah.
yeah, because I had seen him in 400 Days of Summer, I think, but I had never really pictured him as a voice actor. So a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, so you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Dr. Doppler is played swimmingly by David Hyde Pierce, who was on Frasier as Niles, and then you've got um, Laurie Metcalf playing the mom. Laurie Metcalf, she just plays everybody's mom.
I swear she sounded like Andy's mom. I was like in the middle doing research. I was like, is that Andy's mom? Like,
Yeah, she just she always just she sounds like everybody's mom. So, um, and then the other thing is that Emma Thompson is uh, playing the captain, Captain
yeah,
Amelia, and
that was
she
another
does an
surprise.
amazing job in that one.
Super good. I liked that character as well.
So, I mean, thinking back about it, this is a pretty high profile cast.
Very much so for how the film performed. I was surprised to see the cast list.
Yeah, you do know that Laurie Metcalf is the voice of Andy's mom, right?
So she is. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
I was like, I
yeah.
swear that's Andy's mom. Okay,
That's
that
why I
makes me
said
feel.
she's everybody's mom. That's the thing. I mean, she's on Roseanne, and she was on Roseanne, and she was Roseanne's sister. But yeah, she it just seems like she's Sheldon's mom on Big Bang Theory.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah, the one
familiar face.
from Texas. So yeah. Dawn says she's such a good mom portrayer. She really is. Like again, she's not a big character in this movie, but I do think she does an amazing job. Looking through though, Michael McShane is in this movie, and I was like, I have to talk to Michael McShane, and I reached out to him, and I didn't get anything back from him. So if anybody knows Michael McShane, please tell him I need to talk to him. He plays Hands in this one, which is the guy who's all hands and he perishes very quickly, and he does a lot of grunting and groaning. So the fact that they had him for this is interesting. But do you know off the top of your head what Michael McShane is originally from in the Disney lore?
No.
Twilight Zone: Tower of Terror. Did you watch that movie?
Oh, I love that movie.
He
Right.
is he is
Oh,
Q. He is Q,
yeah.
the quartermaster. And
Now,
so it's not on Disney Plus, or I would have reviewed it like day one, but it's still not on Disney Plus. But when I saw he was in this, I was like, oh, wouldn't that be nice to be able to talk to Michael McShane? So he's in it. Um, and then, of course, there's several other people that are in it, but Roger Bumpus is in this, which is he is Turnbuckle, and he is also Squidward
Squidward
from
from
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I
Yes.
did not know that. You're teaching me things.
So, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of names you're like, oh my gosh. And like Dane Davis plays the voice of Morph, and Dane Davis was a sound engineer. And so what they do is they pitch up the speed on his voice to be able to be Morphy. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of a thing. And then Roscoe Lee Brown was Mr. Arrow. He was an amazing actor. And then Emma Thompson, like I said, was Captain Amelia, and then Martin Short was Ben. So yeah, kind of a huge cast. Like, I mean, I'm sure it didn't cost him a ton of money to put this cast together at the time, but it's a lot of people are like, oh, it's that guy who does that thing. That's
Yeah.
cool. So
Definitely.
uh, anyway, uh, Arch Fox, who I can never take seriously, buddy, says most people think Michael J. Fox voiced the main character, which probably would be confused because this movie, I'm betting, gets confused a lot with Atlantis. I bet a lot of people had these two clamshells together on their shelf when they were kids with the VHS, and they probably got them confused because it's male protagonist going off on an adventure, getting in way over his head, trying to uncover some great mystery.
Yeah, but at least Milos is like entertaining, and I care about him as a character. And
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. That's fine. You don't have to. We're all open to what?
I like Atlantis too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing about Atlantis and Treasure Planet is I feel like both of those are kind of listed lower because, like I said, my theory is the music because there weren't musicals, and that was the thing that probably Disney was purposely trying to do here was like, let's do something that's not a princess musical. Let's vary out. Like, they had done, The Lion King worked. That was good. But then you have that's still a musical. And then you have Pocahontas and all of the like that heyday that was Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, all of those together, and then like there's this period of time where they're trying other things out and they're not quite hitting, and so when we talk about live action remakes. This is one I'd like to see them do a live action remake in, kind of, because I would like to see them do it better. But the problem is, no, don't start making faces yet. The problem is there's so many Treasure Island tellings that, like, do we need
Yeah,
it?
I don't put Pirates of the Caribbean point two Disney take. I feel like it just wouldn't be. I feel like there's no way to bring that to live action only because it's either going to be something like Pete's Dragon where we get like unwanted CGI and this visual world that Disney's created is ruined, or is it super cool and they do a great job and it's not like Pirates and I don't get bored watching people on a boat for an hour. I don't know.
Yep. Rosita said Raya and the Last Dragon is not a musical, and yeah, I agree. But again, I would say it's not as popular as, say, Encanto, or Mulan, or Pocahontas, or some of those other movies. And so I don't know. And Raya's in a weird place because Raya was like sort of a COVID type of a situation. So I don't really know. Maybe it would have gotten a bigger deal. I love Raya. I think it's a great movie, but and again, one that we should probably do at some point.
Dawn is hating on me for my treasure my treasure island hates. Dawn, I'm sorry. All love.
Again, I mean, I mean, there are a lot of stories that get retold, especially in the Disney bubble. One of them, Freaky Friday. There's always the whole Switch thing, and you've got the Treasure Island thing comes up a lot. But this was a different take, and it was an opportunity for them to do something very different. And I applaud them for that. I applaud them for not saying, "Hey, we need to put another princess movie in the funnel, or we need to do another musical." They tried something different. There was an adventure movie, and again, I feel like when we get to our final review of this at the end here, I think you're going to have a different opinion of it than I do. But anyway, one of the things that I looked into is there's actually some extra stuff on Disney Plus, and I always make a big deal about the fact that I don't think they do that enough. Treasure Planet probably had a ton of extra features on the DVD. There was probably, I'm pretty sure there was like an extra, like a 2-disc version of it that had a bunch of stuff on it, probably a director's commentary, etc., etc. But this one only has like a couple deleted scenes, and one of them is that instead of opening with the narrator in the book, the way that this did, it was going to open up, instead of using the book as the device, they were going to use old Jim Hawkins to read, like, basically do the same narration about Flint, about the piracy, about this myth of Treasure Planet, and then lead us to where we meet up with him in and it would have skipped the little boy part completely.
But then at least we know like the hero's journey worked. Like he finished it. Like we
Is
have
that
some
good?
kind of route character. I would prefer that because I feel like the period of time we saw him as a kid, while I do like that portion of the film, an older like almost Titanic sort of entry with this like older version of them telling it may have been more sentimental, I guess.
Okay. And again, I think you're trying to understand what's happening as the narrator's doing it, and then like big
Yeah.
head Jim comes in, and then we back away and see that it's a little boy and reading the book. But that would have put him into a situation where he was already, kind of that troublemaking teenager, instead of it being, him as a little boy and then seeing him later and then having to re-explain like why he's that way. Well, dad ran away and he's, trying to find his way, etc., etc. So that was one of the things that was on there, and I thought was an interesting way to put that together. But instead, we start with the little boy, and he has this moment, and he's reading the book, and he's all excited, and then they kind of flash, and it says 12 years later, and then now here we are catching up with Jim as we know him for the rest of the movie. So once they get to the point where they're going off on, to find the treasure, and they're on the ship, and Captain Amelia said, I don't really trust a lot these guys that you hired, and they're all kind of like giving Jim and Doppler these looks on the side. Is it because we already know the Treasure Island story that we know what's going on with Silver? Or is it because he got the warning from Billy Bones about the cyborg? Or is it because we've seen this movie or not? Would we have bought into the fact that Silver could have just been a nice old cook? Or is that all spoiled?
No, I think they made it way too. I feel like the script was handed to us. Like it was very just like we knew everything that was going to happen. And while I know the Treasure Island story and I've seen this film before, like watching it with fresh eyes, like you still know what's going to happen. I would say it's very predictable with that character, and like it was nice to see that Jim like had a connection with like a male figure in his life, especially when they dove into like his father leaving. But I just we know the outcome. It was very predictable, I think.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Like in what role would we not have seen that coming? Because you do sort of see it. Like he's got all these like sharp objects on his right. arm, and he's a little too cool with his swagger. Like, is it because I'd seen this movie before? Because I knew the story of Treasure Island. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, if I had seen this, like, this was the first time I'd ever been introduced to this story, would I have been like, oh, he's going to be a great mentor for Jim. This is a good fit. Or would I have been like, uh-oh, Jim, look out, this guy's trouble.
I mean, I think at that point we hadn't even met a villain in the story, really. So, like, we knew that he was somewhere. And the design of the character was, I mean, the cyborg warning. I feel like anyone watching this film, even if you don't know Treasure Island, like, if they tell you look out for the cyborg and there's a cyborg, look out for him, I guess.
If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's a scene where it all turns. Jim follows Morph into this barrel, and then all of these guys like gather to talk about this potential mutiny they've got going on. They call out Silver because he's being too soft on the kid, but then he has to like be all mean about it. So we still are at a point where we're like, is this like, does he actually care about him at all? He's a bad guy. Like we've learned that you can't really trust. Like I feel like Tim Curry overplays it a little bit, even more so in Muppet Treasure Island. But it's also Tim Curry, and I love him. So, but when we're looking at this, like this is breaking Jim's heart because he thought this is a guy that I've started to trust and look up to. And then when he tries to get out of the galley, and he runs into Long John or to Silver, then it's like, okay, now we have to mutiny, and the mutiny begins, and then there's this chase, and they get in a longboat, and they get off the ship, but he doesn't bring the map because Morph, you just want to get at Morph on that one. He messed it all up.
Yeah, he was pissing me off. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, that thing is just messing up. Like, but okay, I do have to tell you one of my memories from this movie. I don't have very many, but I remember being a child. I was alive when it came out, and McDonald's had Happy Meal toys. I don't know if you remember, Rob, but there was the little Goob, whatever his name is, Blurp. What is it? Something
Morph?
along those lines.
Morph.
Yeah, Morph. There was like a Morph Happy Meal, and I remember seeing it on the ground of Target. Someone had lost their Morph, and I just remember feeling so bad. It was all dirty, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what is that thing? And later that night, my parents showed me Treasure Island because I was so distraught about it. But every time I see him, I just think of that little Happy Meal toy.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah,
I'm
sad.
I was trying to see if I could find.
They were
trying
cute.
to see if I could. Yeah. was trying to see if I could find the Happy Meal toy, but when I go to look for it, it's like, um, it looks like it's on eBay. Like, so if you wanted to get some of them, you still could. Like I see
I
Captain
guess
Amelia,
oh,
and
there he is. Yep.
there's Dr. Doppler, and there's the boy. There's Jim, and then there's Silver.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Aw. It's great.
Mr.
Happy Meal
Arrow
toys used to be so cool.
used to
The
be.
Rock, yeah. Used to be.
I don't know. Sometimes they
I,
still are all right. There's the Spider
I like,
Dude.
yeah, I do not like that spider character whatsoever. It's creepy. It's like worse than Randall. Like a worse
Yeah,
version of Randall.
yeah. Scroop. Yeah, he's. I mean,
Screw.
and honestly, that's a little scary for little kids, isn't it? Because he's got that raspy voice, and he's got the chompers and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Um,
Scarier than horror.
are you saying that that these McDonald's toys aren't awesome? A
What do you
poster
mean?
with
Your unfoldable Epcot poster? I'm sorry.
the deck of cards was good though. The deck of cards was a nice deck of cards. That was pretty good. But yeah,
Oh, I
the
haven't gotten that
stickers, the
one.
colored pencils, and the foldable map.
I want a toy.
This is very expensive. I mean, this is expensive packaging. I feel like they went to a lot of trouble for this. But I agree with you. I want a toy. I want yeah. Anyway,
Grievous and
yes.
Alien. Dawn said
What's
that
that?
is spot on. Dawn said Grievous and Alien combo. Spot on.
Yes. Yep. No. Absolutely. Um, all right. So again, for everybody watching, thank you so much for watching tonight. We appreciate it. Please make sure to hit like so people can find this, especially because Katie took some time to come out and watch this movie with us. So now, Katie, I just have to ask you some trivia questions. It's not me. It's company policy for the
Okay.
show. I wish I could get out of this for you because I'm a huge fan. I don't want to make you feel bad, but maybe
It's just
you'll just ace this. Last week Emma and Desi were on, and we were talking about George of the Jungle, and they did well. And somebody, I can't remember who, in the comments after was like, "Rob, you look distressed. They did so well on the trivia." I want people to do well in the trivia. We're just here having fun. It's not like me trying to torture anybody. So, but
I
I'm still gonna do it.
I love some truth. I like being tested, and I'm gonna preface this. Users watching, I do not know too much about this movie, so it might be a strikeout for me, but I'm excited.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I feel like some of these are gonna be easy for you. What is the name of the inn that Jim and his mom run?
Started with an M.
Did it?
I don't know. I couldn't even remember the names of the characters. It's like Mortin or something. Moonin.
It's it's the Binbo Inn, and it's in the book it was the Admiral Binbo. So it's again they're giving some homage to the original with the Binbo Inn. Sorry.
No, I can respect.
Um,
That's nice.
what's uh yeah, Dawn said Admiral Binbo. Yep. Rosita's got it too. There you go. What is Jim's middle name?
They said that in the movie?
Yeah. Typical mom, she calls him by his middle name at least once, I think twice.
Elias? I don't know.
Elias.
I'm,
Uh,
I'm
by the way,
good.
Adam says he's got the same toy that I do. If it's this one, I'm sorry, brother. Um, but it's Pleiades.
What? Okay, I'm
Are you
sure that's
familiar with the
some.
Pleiades? Like in the stars, astronomy, not astrology. The Pleiades. I think it's the three sisters, right? Is the Pleiades? Um, but it's James Pleiades Hawkins. I
That's
put it in
tough.
my
Maybe.
when they said it, I put it in my notes, and I'm 100% sure I misspelled Pleiades, so we're good there. What is Arch Fox says Tiberius, like James Tiberius Kirk, of course. Dude, I literally I thought the same thing. Like that did cross my mind, the whole James Tiberius Kirk thing. Um, the what is Jim's? I've been very careful not to say it. What is Jim's mother's name?
Oh my gosh, the whole movie I was getting so frustrated because I was like, what is her name? They're not saying her name. Oh my
Doppler
goodness.
says it several times in the beginning, but
Anne?
it is that kind of a name. But no, it's not Anne.
Mary? Jane?
Sarah.
Sarah? Of course.
Sarah.
Sarah.
You could see
Sarah.
that, right? That they kind of fit together, like Sarah, Ann, Jane.
Yeah,
Um, so when
cool.
we meet up with Ben, he tells us what Ben stands for. What does Ben stand for?
Oh my gosh. This was the part of the movie when I was like, is that Martin Short? And I was like,
Oh, that's my note. It's Martin Short. I thought Martin Short was your boy. You don't even have to write that down.
oh my gosh. That's hilarious. I know I had to double check because he was giving me like Robin Williams vibes, but it wasn't Robin Williams. I was like, oh, it has to be Martin Short, the knockoff Robin Williams. Um, but no, I don't. Ben, it's like bio molecular or something. Really?
Bio is correct. That's the B.
Biogenerated
Where do you get
electric.
the G out of Ben? I don't know. So it's bioelectronic navigator. Bioelectronic navigator.
Okay, that's what I
What
meant
was
to say.
what was the name of the ship that they were on? I mean, it was most of the movie, and you hated the ship, so you must have remembered the name of it.
The ship. You got me on these. I don't know. I don't know.
Nico says Biodome. That would have been a good name for him, Biodome. No, it's. Do you know who wrote Treasure Island?
Isn't it? Oh my gosh. I don't want to say it because if I do, it's like so terrible if I get it wrong.
It's it's Robert Louis Stevenson.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's
the name of
definitely
the
what I was
ship
gonna
was the RLS Legacy.
see. Like they paid a lot of homage in this film, but I feel like naming the ship something fun could have been okay.
I mean, that's is that not fun? Or it's his legacy, right? It's his legacy. I was going to ask you this one. I feel like you won't know the answer to it. I honestly don't think you will. How old was Jim when he starts this adventure?
So I'm gonna assume he was like 5 in the beginning of the movie. Is that? I'm just gonna assume he was like 5, and it said 12 years later. So I'm gonna say 17.
He was
5.
3.
Oh, okay.
So
He can
so
read at
so,
3.
so he doesn't need to. He opens the book. It reads for him.
Duh, right. True.
You did see this movie, right? I'm just kidding. Um, one last thing that I thought was pretty funny is when he finds Ben, he says something about an android. Do you remember that part where he's like he wants to be with an android named, yeah, I don't think you would know this, android named Lupe, which I just thought was that sounded like such a Martin Short thing to say that I thought that would stand
Honestly,
out. But
I love Martin Short. I have seen his stand up live. I will say he is hard to understand at times. I feel like he does roll his words quite a bit, especially when he's frantic and screaming like a robot. So I'm sure I
yeah.
did miss that. Yeah, dang, Rob, you're killing me with this trivia. But I'm
All right,
also bad with names and
no,
all
that's okay.
that.
There's one last thing, and I don't know if you'll know this one or not. But at the very end, when they're having their, Amelia and Doppler have had their unholy alliance, right? Because one's a cat and one's a dog, but they're going to be like living together forever, and they have a litter of kitten puppies. Um, Morph turns into a rattle to keep them entertained. What's on the rattle?
Oh my gosh, it was blue. It had stripes, but I can't tell you what it was.
That's so good.
Oh,
That's so good. It was bones.
bones?
Yeah, because they're dogs, or he's a dog. The little boy is a dog.
Okay. It was.
That's it.
I remember.
That's
But
it. There,
okay.
there are a lot of little Easter egg things in this movie. You know, we talked about the trivia's over. You're done. You're good. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys playing along in the chat. I saw a lot of people. RLS Argos is one that Archfox said. RLS Legacy. Rosita nailed it on that one. So yeah, a lot of fun. I hope you guys have fun doing that. I do. I always am like, oh, I got to have some trivia. I've got to have some things, and I don't look things up. I just pay attention in the movie when we're watching it. But there were some other little Easter egg things, like when Ben sings "Yo Ho," like that was pretty cute.
See, you should have asked me about that. I remembered that. If you would have been like, Ben, what song did he sing?
Um,
I would have been like, oh.
um, and then there's also the reference to Star Trek, where he's like, damn it, Jim, I'm an astronomer, not a doctor.
Yeah,
Like
I did.
straight
They
out of
also,
Star Trek.
at some point when they were digging through the treasure, one of them was like, we're going to need a bigger boat. And I was like, dang,
I,
they're throwing a lot of references in here.
Yes, exactly. That's another one that I wrote down too. Is we're gonna, and you could hear that, and it's very faint. It's funny that you heard it as well. It's very faint that one little character goes, "We're gonna need a bigger boat." And it's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, just hear it in the background like that. I nailed that
Yeah,
impression, didn't I? It was very good.
that was
Um,
really
Here's one other thing that I thought was interesting, and I don't think it was in the main movie, but the extra features I was talking about. There's one extra feature. There's I think two or three that are like deleted scenes that they pieced together, and they're about 2 or 3 minutes. So if you guys have a chance and you go back and watch it, watch these. They're kind of neat. It's the one I talked about with older Jim narrating the beginning, but one of them is about this little boy named Ethan who asked Jim about his ship, talks about his scooter needs to be fixed, and he's like, do you think you could help me with my scooter? And Jim's like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. So now he's feeling like, hey, I'm gonna help a little kid out. He turns his back, and when he turns back again, the little kid's dad's there, and he's like, no, no, we got it, we're good, thank you though. And so now he feels bad because he was going to be able to help this little kid and be like this sort of mentor thing and get him, but then his dad was there, and then it just reminds him of the fact that his dad is gone. The little kid Ethan, I heard the voice. I was like, "Gosh, that voice sounds so familiar." And it's Jeremy Suarez, who then would go on to do Coda in Brother Bear, and it was so
yeah,
funny to me that he was in this because he was at that age. It was a very distinctive voice. He was on the Bernie Mac show. He was on
yeah.
he was Coda in Brother Bear. And so as I heard that voice, I was like, wow, that is crazy that he would do that. So, which again is another one. Brother Bear, I think, and
Oh,
Tarzan both didn't get the love that they needed, but they're very cult classic-y, and I think a lot of it's because of that music.
Rob,
Keep coming back to that music.
I was watching this movie, I was sitting there and I was like, oh, I want to turn on Brother Bear so bad right now because it was making me think of Brother Bear, just the animation. But I swear, if they would have given us like two more songs or maybe one big show scene or something that people would like relate, because I feel like there's movies like that. I'll think there has to be a Disney movie that is only as big as it is because of the music, and there are scenes specifically from like Disney films. I'll always think of the musical scene before the non-musical scene. So I think if they would have just given it one big like doodah, or like even if he opened the map, the ball, they could have done some like futuristic music. Like that would have given it a little extra
Tell
life.
everybody I'm on my way. Get it.
That song is so good. That whole soundtrack's amazing. Brother Bear, we should do one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you're making a list. I love it. Um, so let me just ask you, you're swinging through I know that you go to Disneyland. You're swinging through Disneyland, and you see this fella standing across from you. Do you stop and get a quick pic, or do you run away?
It's not from. He looks like he's from Kingdom Keepers. That does not look right.
Well,
That hair.
and I feel like he's standing in front of the Strange World, but it's not Strange World. You see what I'm saying? Like that's like Ben's house back there, so it's definitely the right background, but it feels like a Strange World background.
I'm like shocked they even printed that background just for this one photo op. That's crazy. Yeah,
Well, I mean,
I
and a
don't.
lot of I don't know. A lot of times they'll bring back they'll bring back some characters for for some bigger events and the nighttime shows and stuff like that. So I think it's
Yeah.
always neat to see them. We definitely saw a lot of them at when you and I were at Oogie Boogie. They do a lot of them for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then here you can meet your boy Ben as
Okay.
well, apparently.
I'd be down for a pic with the robot, but I don't know. Jim's hair just does not look right. It's like down to his chin. I swear it was not like that in the movie.
I will argue that I think that Disney does princesses perfectly and does princes horribly.
Oh yeah. I remember
Prince
when I saw
Eric,
her.
have you ever seen a good Prince Eric? No offense if
No,
anybody has is a friend of Prince Eric, but I mean I feel like it's always the hair.
it's always the hair, and I feel like they just obviously women are the priority when it comes to characters. I feel, and the hiring probably pays a little bit more attention to that, where the guys can be more interchangeable between like different princes. Because I wouldn't say there's like a distinctive like Prince Eric could like play Prince Philip if he wanted to. So maybe there's just like a little bit less thought going into them.
Insert standard white guy here.
So, yeah. Yes. Yes. Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but like Flynn Rider, I think let me back up and say I think Flynn Rider is where they usually do the best. Maybe Gaston, but Gaston's usually over the top anyway, and so that maybe fits a little bit. But and not and we're not really talking about princes at this point because they're both scoundrels. But I mean, male characters in general are usually to me very problematic. Peter Pan.
Yeah. I did meet Milo one time at 80s. Was it 90? One of those nights, and that was a stellar
Yeah.
play. Sometimes
Okay.
they hit it out of the park, but that one's tough. That one's tough.
Yeah. Archfox says
I'm always
even Gaston has bad hair, but I think again but he's got a very distinct personality, whereas a lot of times the rest of them don't, and they just look like some dude who's wearing a wig.
with the grin. Yeah. Yeah. It's always the arms up here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just give me more Max Goof as power line. That's all I need in my life. It's all fine.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about and I feel like that's really the only tie-ins we've seen to the parks.
I was
In
thinking
general.
I could not I could not think of a single thing I've ever seen Treasure Planet themed at Disneyland. Personally, at least.
Well,
Maybe
and
I'm missing something.
last year it celebrated its 20th anniversary. You would have thought there would have been something. I think there were probably some pins. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like there were, but that it celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. It's going to be 21 in November. Um, but yeah, you would think that there would be a little bit more about it. But I mean, there's a lot of movies like that. And again, back to the music thing, Black Cauldron. Black Cauldron doesn't really have any music, and that's one of those that is, people forget about it or like it or don't like it or whatever. But there's 60 full-length animated features, 61 now, I guess, with Strange World. And so, like, once I ask you about like this movie, I want to get your take. So think about this: is where this one ranks out of those 61 for you, like
Ooh.
roughly. You don't need to tell me exactly, but roughly. Um, but anyway, we've talked about the park tie-ins. We've talked about the music. We've talked about the cast. We've talked about the animation, the basic storyline, the connections with Treasure Planet. But Katie, I got to ask you now, for all the people, and I cannot wait for your answer. Whew, would you recommend this movie?
Okay, so if someone were to ask me would I recommend this movie, as Rob has done, I would probably suggest no.
Hmm.
If you are looking for a Disney, listen, I am a fan of sci-fi, futuristic, animation, Disney, all that. Like this movie makes sense, like something I would like, and I think they just miss on so much. I think the script is boring. I think the characters are unmemorable. I'm so sorry if I'm hurting anyone's feeling. That's so that's so harsh. But like you said, music is not there. Cast list is good, but I just don't think that really holds like a heavy place in the Disney legacy. If I were asked like to place it, it would definitely be in like the lower tier next to like Bolt and like Chicken Little for me, to be honest. And I hate saying that because I do like the time it came out, and I like the animation style, and I like the thought, and it being so different from the rest of the Disney collection. It does have that. But if you're looking for like a feel good cartoon from this era, this is not the first I would tell you to pick. I wouldn't even tell you to pick this if you're looking for like a futuristic cartoon to watch. But I would not recommend this to you. I think you can do better out there. And that concludes my review.
Wow, that is rough. You know what? The funny thing is, I would still recommend this movie, but with, I guess with a couple caveats, is that I still think it's a fun little movie for kids to watch. I think it has some nostalgia factor. If you grew up with this movie, you probably love this movie. I still argue that there may be an opportunity for a live action reboot for something like this, because they take the movies that were successes like The Lion King, and they don't do anything for it when they, in my opinion, when they bring him back to this live action, even though that's mostly computer generated. I feel like there would be an opportunity for them to take this concept and bring it into live action and make it something better than it was. But it's a fine movie. I agree with you. It's not the best Disney movie. I would probably put it somewhere near the middle of the 61. But like, I love the John Resnick song. So the "I'm Still Here" song is a banger. I love that one. There's a couple of different John Resnick songs. So I mean, in general, I think I would recommend it, but I don't think it's one that you're gonna watch and then go, let me cue it up and watch it again, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like I definitely don't need to watch this for 10,
A while.
20. Yeah.
Yeah. Rosita says, "Boo."
I'm sorry, Rosita. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Uh, it needs a reboot with ideally with cat paws in them, like Puss in Boots. Is that what we're talking about? Jellicle cats come out at night. I don't know. Here's the thing though. I think that that it is a Disney classic, and at that level, let's not compare it to other Disney movies, and let's just say, like, compare it to, like, say, Rock Dog or some of those other, like, off-brand movies. I would recommend this one before any of those things that are out there, because I do still think it has some heart to it. I still think that it has, like, those songs that I was talking about that I think are to me, very moving songs that were put in it. Just not, it's not a musical though, and I think that I keep wondering if Disney needs to stay in that lane, in Encanto, I'm trying to think of something else modern day that where the musical was, the difference.
The thing to me is, like, there doesn't need to be a whole musical number. There doesn't need to be this, like, big dancing scene. I think a movie, to use as, I mean, it's Pixar, but Ratatouille, there's no grand show or scene. They just have a beautiful soundtrack that illuminates every bit of the story.
That's
And
fair.
that was lacking here. Like, there was no, I'll listen to the Ratatouille soundtrack alone, and, like, I can see the story happening. If I were to listen to this soundtrack, I don't think I could see the story happening.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
guess. Well, I think
No,
they
that's
can be
fair.
yeah.
So let's talk about what's coming up on Deep in the Plus. Last week we did George of the Jungle, as I mentioned. If you haven't, you go back and watch that. Desi and Emma and I watched that one, the Brendan Fraser classic. This week we're doing Treasure Planet. Next week, buckle up, because we have a 3-hour movie. If you're doing your homework, it is The Happiest Millionaire. And then on March 22nd, Alicia will be here to talk about National Treasure. And then coming soon, we're going to do the original Tron, because of the Tron attraction opening up at Magic Kingdom. We're going to do Toy Story 4, because Desi has demanded it. And we're going to do Mrs. Doubtfire and Mandalorian Season 3 once that is completed. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming up. We hope you will join us. We hope you'll go back into the catalog and watch some of the stuff that we have already done. Katie and I have done a lot of reviews, and she has some stuff that she has reviewed much more positively than this. Tough to Be a Bug, or A
Please go
Bug's
watch
Life.
my review. I will be so positive the entire time you won't believe it.
Which one? A Bug's Life?
Bugs Life, yeah.
Yeah.
Roger Rabbit, I love. Nightmare, all good ones that we've done.
Mr. Boogedy?
Even Mr. Boogedy, I give love to. So
But we only did Mr. Boogedy because of you. That like I don't know that I would have gone to that one, but you were like, "Oh, we got to do Mr. Boogedy." But it's always a pleasure having you on. I appreciate you so much for coming back on and doing this. It means so much. Thank you for doing that and for watching this. And hopefully we'll get you back on soon to do one that I'm gonna let you pick next time. You helped me out on this one with Treasure Planet, but I'm gonna let you pick next time. And then if you want to pick Muppets Treasure Island, that's fine.
maybe if the people want it. But thank you so much for having me, Rob. It was fun to dive back into this movie. So thanks for having me.
I like that you pretend that that's the case. So thanks a lot. And again, thank you everyone who watched. We will see you. Thursday night is News Tonight. Sunday night we'll be back for Park Center, and so we will see you then. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you soon.
Bye.